Hi, folks. I'm Rich Lucy, Senior Prevention Program Manager here at the Drug Enforcement Administration's Community Outreach and Prevention Support section. Welcome to this episode of Prevention Profiles Take 5. Today's guest, an interesting one, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. Sean Fearns. Let me tell you a little bit about Sean. Sean Fearns has served as the Chief of Community Outreach and Prevention Support for DEA since 2015. In this capacity, Sean is responsible for guiding a diverse and creative staff to develop and implement strategic national education efforts and partnerships with other organizations at the federal, state, and local levels. These partnerships and initiatives help educate the public on the current drug threats facing the country, support the DEA field offices, implement DEA's Operation Engage, communicate key administration drug prevention messages, and help reduce the demand for illegal drugs. Sean previously served as the first director of the DEA Museum from 2000 to 2015. And with that, Sean, welcome to the podcast.
Rich, great to have you. Or great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, and so here's the inside baseball for the viewers. If you've picked up on Sean's title and my bio, yes, he is the chief of the section I work in, meaning he's my supervisor. If you have never interviewed your supervisor before, it's a trip. You should try it sometime.
I'll be taking notes.
Yes, this is also part of my evaluation plan. All kidding aside, it's great to have Sean on. Actually, Sean was on several years ago. He and I were both relatively new to this section of DEA. I was brand new to DEA, and a lot's happened since then. So we're really looking forward for you to hear what's going on here. So Sean, I'm going to jump right in with our first question. So DEA's primary mission is to enforce the nation's federal drug laws. Why is DEA involved in preventing drug use and misuse, which I know a lot of people out in the field, general public, they seem to think that's a separate lane from enforcement.
Yeah. If I had $1 for every time I've heard over the years that, what is DEA possibly doing in going out into the community on the drug issue, shouldn't you be going after the drug trafficking organizations in the in the states and countries where they are existing?
Mm-hmm.
And it's true. The E in DEA does stand for enforcement. Mm-hmm. But what we are trying to do as an organization is address both the supply side of the issue through our enforcement work going after these drug trafficking organizations, but also support efforts across the country in particularly under-resourced and at-need communities to help reduce the demand for drugs. Mm-hmm. And, everybody understands now that there is a balance to drug policy in this country, that there is a continuum of addressing behavioral health. That wasn't always the case. When DEA started this effort back in the mid-1980s, it was not sophisticated. It was not data-driven. It was not science-based. Mm-hmm. And that has evolved over time. And if DEA, in its position with its intelligence information and street knowledge of a drug issue in a particular community, can help to support the other sectors of a community in what they need to do to address the risk and protective factors of drugs, mm-hmm. whether it be on a college campus or in the community surrounding it or in the home where the student goes when they're not on college campuses, then we are taking what we can, we are doing what we can, I should say, mm-hmm. to help advance the ball down the field.
I know I just recently came off of staffing and attending an event that was college health related, but I've been at other conferences as well.
That was the American College
Health Association. Right, exactly. And people that visit the exhibit there and even at non-higher ed specific conferences are surprised. And they looked and they went, wow, DEA, never expected to see you here.
There are going to be certain circumstances where having DEA at the table can be a little off-putting, mm-hmm. and there are going to be other circumstances where having DEA at the table can help. And that's probably our greatest challenge with our DEA field offices is where you strike that mix on being present and sharing intelligence and sharing information and raising awareness, and then stepping back to let the preventionists, because DEA, we are not preventionists ourselves. We are there to support prevention. But to step back and let those subject matter experts do what they do best. And, if we can help break down barriers and eliminate silos and get folks to work together that don't always necessarily work together, then perhaps we've had a measurable impact on building those partnerships and supporting long-term impact in a community.
And I know we'll get to it a little bit later about when we started, which has been now over 35 years, mid-'80s. We'll talk about that in a bit.
Okay.
But I know when I talk to people in the field, kidding, not kidding, I say, we're trying to no longer be the best kept secret about DEA. I mean, we are, for many people, the first interaction they ever have
Ambassadors.
with DEA. Yeah. So I always try to tell folks, it's not an either or when it comes to prevention and law enforcement. It's a both and.
Yes. And that takes a little bit of getting used to for some. We talk about the importance of reducing stigma. I think sometimes there's a stigma against law enforcement that, and perhaps in certain circumstances, rightfully so.
Right.
We haven't always been accurate and targeted and science-based and evidence-based in our efforts in the past. But certainly we've done a heck of a lot better in the past couple of decades. Heck, prevention science has advanced dramatically in the last couple of decades. And the science of how drugs affect the body and the brain change by the day. And so we're looking to enhance our work, to do it more frequently and more holistically, and to be in places we haven't been before in order to, again, have an impact.
Yeah. So let's talk about now this particular community that makes up the majority of our viewers for the podcast. So over the course of the past several years, 2016 in particular, DEA has enhanced its outreach and its prevention support to colleges and universities. What does DEA hope to achieve with that support?
Making a difference. And you hear me say it around the office frequently, but I'll make sure it bears repeating here on this podcast. I don't ever want DEA to be accused of duplicating things that are already out there. So when you and I and the DEA Administrator's Office made a conscientious decision to move into this space in 2016, the very first question we asked was, if DEA is going to be on a college campus for more than just a recruitment fair or an enforcement action, what can we do to help the field of prevention? And also intervention, harm reduction, and treatment and recovery, recognizing the continuum.
Right.
And you convened a group of trusted experts, subject matter experts across higher ed that helped get us going in the right path. That's always going to be our North Star, is what's missing for the professionals on college campuses and in the surrounding community. What's missing, other than money, and I wish DEA was rolling in cash.
Right.
But other than money, what's missing that would help prevention professionals do their job more efficiently and effectively and with long-term impact that we could bring to the table?
Well, as someone who has now about 24 years of federal government, experience, my two previous agencies, Department of Ed and Health and Human Services, they were grant-making agencies.
Right.
I know the benefit of awarding the grants, but I have to say that for DEA not being a grant-making agency, the amount of support that we are giving to institutions of higher education is tremendous with what we're doing.
I hope so.
And being able to provide.
Yeah.
I know I hear it in the field.
Well, that would be perhaps one of my calls to action to the folks that are viewing or listening to this podcast is to go to campusdrugprevention.gov and take a look at the resources that are there. And by the way, it's not just from DEA. You call it, accurately so, a one-stop shop for prevention professionals on college campuses. And so go to that website and take a look at what's there. And if you feel that something's missing that should be added in, let us know. But also share what we have there, because there's a lot of great stuff. And it's all data-driven. Data shows us that, particularly monitoring the future, that there are drug issues that face that 18 to 25-year-old cohort that are somewhat unique. There's been an increase in marijuana. There remains a stubbornly large number that are misusing prescription stimulants. And so, again, what materials and information, connections and resources can we bring to prevention professionals on college campuses that help address those issues?
And I hardly get through a podcast without mentioning the SPIF, the Strategic Prevention Framework. We practice what we preach. I mean, and we practice what SAMHSA preaches, right? Because it's their Strategic Prevention Framework.
Yeah.
And I think of, so you mentioned CDP, as we call it, campusdrugprevention.gov. We're very strategic in what we put on the website. I somewhat facetiously, but in all honesty, I don't want it to become like the junk drawer, right? We don't want everything to go in there.
Right.
So we're very strategic that it's focused in higher ed, primarily on prevention, because that's what the professionals in the field were telling us.
And I will add that this kind of speaks to what DEA is doing in this outreach space writ large, that we feel that just as our enforcement efforts are going upstream of the drug sales and targeting the drug trafficking organizations, not individual users or misusers, but traffickers.
Right.
If we are going upstream of the sales and breaking down drug cartels and drug trafficking organizations, and then also the money launderers that are helping to, drive the billions of dollars that are involved in the drug trafficking trade, then so too should we move upstream of use and misuse to try and prevent it. And again, science shows us that if we can delay first use for individuals before they're age 21 to 25, depending on whether it's a boy or a girl, then we dramatically reduce the chances that that individual is going to face addiction later on. And I hope that there aren't folks out there arguing that more drug use by college students and more drug use by high school students and more drug use by elementary school students is a good thing for this country. I don't think it is. DEA doesn't think it is. We're trying to enforce the Controlled Substances Act, which says, make enough medications available to meet medical need, but no more than is needed to meet medical need. And so when you talk about youth substance use, it's about primary universal prevention, stopping first use, certainly stopping first use or experimentation from going on into problematic use. And so we're always going to be laser focused on prevention with a recognition that there are treatment resources available, that folks who have an issue should get into treatment, that treatment works, that people recover, and that we can then support people in their lifelong recovery. It's that simple. But for the amount of bandwidth that DEA has with our staff in our DEA domestic field divisions that are most likely to be interacting with these college campuses, the best bang for our buck is to go upstream.
Absolutely. So we'll pivot now and talk about a few of our high-profile initiatives. And one of the first ones I want to talk about is National Prescription Drug Take-Back Day. In fact, this past April, more than 663,000 pounds of unneeded medications were collected at nearly 5,000 sites across the country. Typically, it's held each October, and we do have plans for another rollout this October. So how can college campuses get involved in the next Take Back Day?
Well, I will say another call to action for this podcast is to save the date. I can say today that the next National Prescription Drug Take Back Day is on Saturday, October 28th, 2023. So we want college campuses, whether it's the campus law enforcements, police departments, the campus health centers, we would love for them to get involved and host take-back locations on college campus. I can't say enough great things about both NASPA, the National Association of Student Personnel Administrators, and IACLEA, excuse me, my voice is going, the International Association of Campus Law Enforcement Administrators. Those two organizations for years have helped DEA to spread the word to college and university campuses that every campus can get involved in Take Back Day by either having a Take Back location on that day on October 28th, or even better, set up a year-round take-back location that's open 365 days a year. DEA maintains that if turning in unused, expired, or unwanted medications for folks that are done with their pills, that if that is as common as putting on a seatbelt when you get into a car, then we will obviously have a dramatic and long-term impact on the misuse of prescription opioids and other prescription drugs. Now, I recognize that the number one issue for most college and university campuses is prescription stimulants, not prescription opioids. But when DEA does a take-back day, either in April or October, we could care less what the pills are that are being turned in. It's anonymous, it's free. This past April, we had over 5,000 law enforcement partners across the country that helped set up these locations. We were getting so good at promoting it that you can go on Google and just from where you are with your phone, type in take-back location, and they'll tell you where the nearest location is for you. You can also go to deatakeback.com, which has information on take-back locations. But to the college and university campus professionals who are watching or listening to this podcast, go to deatakeback.com and click on the link for how to sign up to be a location. Many college and university campuses are already doing that, and we are incredibly grateful. You mentioned the statistics on the amount of pills and other medications that were taken off the streets. That's saving lives. That's saving lives. That's preventing folks that could have accessed those pills and misused them. And we're working to try and address that.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that there really are two ways in which colleges and universities can get involved. One, host the collection site specifically on your campus. Granted, that requires law enforcement involvement, either on campus or municipally.
And let me address why that is, because a lot of folks are going to say, well, why can't I just have a big old cardboard box, collect all these pills, and then go turn them into the local pharmacy?
Right.
The way that the law is written at the federal level with Congress is that control over those medications needs to be maintained from the moment the medication is manufactured by the pharmaceutical company all the way through to when the doctor is writing the prescription for it, the pharmacy is filling that prescription, us as the individual taking that medication is using it, and then disposing of it. So unfortunately, it's not so simple as just setting up a street sign and saying, hey, turn in your meds here.
Right.
There is a level of law enforcement involvement. When college and university folks see a take-back collection box that's available year-round, typically they look like the old-fashioned U.S. Postal Service mailboxes, or they look like, and I'm dating myself when I say this, if you remember the Blockbuster boxes where you drop off your video, right? They'll look like that. But those are collected by law enforcement professionals, whether it's on campus or in the surrounding community, on a regular basis, so that there's some accounting, because we don't want those pills to fall into the hands of someone who would misuse them.
And then the other opportunity for colleges and universities to get involved, if they're not going to be a collection site themselves, is to collaborate with their community partners who are collection sites. I know that federally, I was part of a different agency's federal take-back efforts. We always used it also as an education opportunity. Set up the table, put out the resources, and use that as not just, oh, here's the drugs and walk away. Use it as that education.
And a number of campuses over the past years have done just that, that they know that their law enforcement, their campus police is going to have a take-back location over at the student union. And for the hours that the take-back is running, which is 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. in whatever time zone, the health center or the coalition that's working on that college campus will set up a table next to it and hand out materials. For example, today, it's great to collect unused medications, but it's also important to get the message out that if you don't know where a pill has come from, and you think that just because your friend down the hall in the dorm has given you what you think is an Adderall or a Xanax or an oxycodone, we don't have any clue where that pill came from if it wasn't a prescription written for you and filled by your pharmacy.
Right.
And there is such a growing threat of fake pills laced with fentanyl and methamphetamine and other products that a take-back day location is an opportunity for reverse messaging back to the person dropping off their pills. Hey, thank you so much for giving your unneeded, unwanted, or expired medications. Hey, can you also share word about fake pills and fentanyl?
Well, the bonus question, obviously.
This was only supposed to be 5.
This is the perfect opportunity, though.
Making it up.
Yeah, perfect opportunity to talk about one pill can kill.
Yeah,
I mean, so do you want to
So,
just
sure, yeah.
pivot into that?
absolutely. 2 years ago now, DEA's Forensics Laboratory Network, and we have a network of labs all over the United States that are doing forensic analysis of the substances that we seize from drug traffickers. The DEA laboratories analysis of seized pills set off a major alarm bell for DEA that at that time, of the pills that DEA seizes and analyzes, suddenly 4 out of every 10 pills that were being tested were not only counterfeit or fake, but they also contained what's considered a deadly dose of fentanyl. And for those that aren't familiar with the scale of things, a deadly dose of fentanyl could fit on the tip of that pen.
Yeah.
It's 2 milligrams. So when you think of a sweet and low packet or
Right.
equal packet, I'm not trying to malign any particular sweetener,
Yeah.
those are typically 1 gram or 1,000 milligrams. And if that amount of powder in a sweetener packet was fentanyl, that's enough fentanyl to potentially kill 500 Americans. And when you hear about DEA seizing kilograms and kilograms and kilograms, massive shipments of fentanyl coming in from Mexico and other countries, it gives you a sense of the scale of this deadly product. And so DEA said, okay, we have to do more as an enforcement organization. We have to step up and go after the drug trafficking organizations, and there are 2 of them based in Mexico, the Sinaloa cartel and the Jalisco cartel. They are the source of the lion's share of illicit, illegally produced fentanyl. And that's important for folks to understand because there's also legal pharmaceutical fentanyl
Right.
that a doctor can write you a prescription for. That's not the fentanyl that's attracting the problems we have in this country right now. It's made from chemicals sourced largely from China, made in Mexico, and smuggled into the United States. And so DEA said we're going to do more to go after the cartels, and we are, to the extent that we are working with our international partners, not just DEA domestically, but we also have to get the American public aware. And so for the first time in many, many years, DEA put out a public safety alert. Be aware, 4 out of 10 pills that DEA seizes contain fentanyl and a potentially deadly dose of fentanyl.
Right.
That was in 2021.
Right.
Then in 2022, it got worse. Our laboratory testing, which continues every day, set off another alarm bell. Folks, we're now up to 6 in 10 fake pills that DEA seizes contain an illicit dose of fentanyl or other product, the methamphetamine, for example. And so the One Pill Can Kill campaign continues to this day. And if I can give out some shout-outs, there are a number of college and university campuses, institutions of higher learning across the country, who have embraced the opportunity to educate their own student population, professors, staff, surrounding community, that this is a threat that's out there. And from putting out flyers and material in high-profile locations, talking about it in classrooms, wrapping vehicles that are driving around campus with a One Pill Can Kill message. You know, and I say this because you often bring it up, that some people say, well, that's just scare tactics. There goes DEA scaring the population again. And it's unfortunate, but it's just scientific fact. You run the risk. If you don't know where that pill came from, you run the risk of taking a pill that could kill you.
Yeah, yeah. And to turn a phrase, yes, it's been brought up that, isn't this just a scare tactic? And I say to folks, no, this is not a scare tactic. The difference is that these are facts that are scary.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference.
Yep. No, you're right.
In that.
Part of the issue is that our nation is used to a safe and reliable supply of pharmaceutical medications. Made in America, prescribed by a doctor, filled by a pharmacist, and you take them according to the directions
Right.
on the package. Enter these very, very intelligent drug cartels that, God bless them, if they were legal, they would be in the top Fortune 500 in terms of the billions of dollars in revenue that they make. And they see an opportunity from a marketing and business standpoint to take advantage of America's use of pills for medical need.
Right.
And if they produce a product that looks just like, and I keep using these three examples because
Yeah.
they're probably the most familiar for college and university campuses, but if they make a pill that looks just like an OxyContin or an oxycodone, just like a Xanax, just like an Adderall, then they can pass that off and make sales. And they're not trying to kill their customers. They're just trying to hook them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And fentanyl is an incredibly addicting substance.
Yeah. Well, to the viewers, I want to mention a couple of resources for you that are related to all of this. First of all, dea.gov/onepill. There you can learn everything you wanted to know about the One Pill Can Kill awareness campaign, including specifically the partner toolbox. I always point people to that toolbox because you'll find the graphics, the social media messages. That's where we encourage you, download all of that information, use it as you need to. It's all free. And the graphics are ready-made, encourage you to do that. For the campuses, we took a page from our own book on campusdrugprevention.gov. So if you now go to campusdrugprevention.gov/onepill, you'll see the campus examples that Sean's mentioned about the institutions of higher ed who have embraced this campaign and have student-developed, student-driven, the whole community on and off campus. And if you are specifically doing some education or some awareness around One Pill Can Kill on campus, we'd love to hear about it. We'd love to highlight your efforts on the website too. And there's information on the website on how you can submit your entries, to us to do that.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, all DEA cares about is simply getting out the warning that there are fake pills out there that contain a potentially deadly dose of fentanyl. We are not looking for the credit. In fact,
Right.
I would prefer that the college or the university or the health center or the local campus police department or the community coalition, that they take ownership because they have a what's the word I'm looking for? A reputation in their local community that they're going to provide good science-based, evidence-based information to help people make healthy decisions. If the fact that DEA is attached to that in any way affects the ability of that message to resonate with the audience, then take DEA out of it. This is simply a matter of a public awareness, public health message that we want to stop people from overdosing and dying from fentanyl poisonings.
So we talked about Prescription Drug Take-Back Day, tied in One Pill Can Kill, two major initiatives, even for us from an outreach perspective. And now there's a third. There's been a third, and let's talk about this one. It's been around for a while. And in fact, tie it all into the month of October. There are ways to leverage all of this, with October being, National Substance Use Prevention Month and Take Back Day. So, Red Ribbon Week. It started more than 35 years ago. I'm going to I don't feel I'm putting you on the spot at all because we all know his story frontwards and backwards, but it all started with one individual, Special Agent Enrique Camarena. You want to tell his story and how this all started?
He's a DEA special agent who's been on the job for a number of years in 1985, and he is assigned to the DEA office in Guadalajara, Mexico. He goes to work every day at the consulate, and on one particular day in early February of 1985, he leaves the consulate to go have lunch with his wife, Mica Camarena. And on his way to his car, he is kidnapped. And at the time, DEA figured it was probably Mexican drug cartel members. It turned out later that they were probably aided by corrupt police at the time. And he is tortured for 7-8 days and then brutally murdered because he was a DEA agent. And the cartels were trying to send a message to DEA that you need to back off and let us do our thing. If there's a case of something that blew up in their faces, this is a perfect example because it galvanized not only DEA and other federal agencies and the White House, but it galvanized parents and teachers. Kiki had been a student at Calexico High School in Calexico, California. And students and teachers at Calexico High School started to tie red ribbons around their community and form what were then known as Camarena clubs to, again, move upstream of the problem and say, hey, we have got to get every American aware of the threat from drugs and drug trafficking so that we can have an impact on this. one of DEA's many responses to the kidnapping of Camarena was to stand up what has become our Office of Community Outreach and Prevention Support, 1986. Those early Camarena clubs in Calexico High School began to grow and catch fire across the country. Parents groups in Illinois and Virginia and elsewhere got involved in supporting, and we began to see what has become Red Ribbon. I think one of the things that's important for drug prevention folks today to keep in mind is Red Ribbon is not a program per se. It
Right.
doesn't have its own curriculum. It doesn't have its own set of deliverables. It's an awareness movement. It's a campaign that any college or university or community or parent group or health center could take and use as a platform for saying, our big drug issue here in our community might be meth, or it might be heroin, or it might be cocaine, or it might be fentanyl. But that during October, and Red Ribbon is always October 23rd through October 31st, during Red Ribbon, we're going to speak out about the importance of not using substances by youth, that we want to prevent substance use. And over time, Red Ribbon Week, which again, October 23rd through October 31st, has grown into essentially the entire month of October. The White House every year names it National Prevention Month. So there are opportunities for students and teachers and clinicians to conduct events and activities in memory of Special Agent Camarena, but certainly the point is to avoid substance use. And for those that are familiar with the Netflix series Narcos, the last 2 seasons of Narcos focus on the story of Special Agent Camarena and his investigation of the cartel members in Mexico and other countries. And that operation, by the way, that investigation continues to this day, because we are going to bring to justice those individuals who are bringing poisons into our country through this illicit drug trafficking and who are targeting federal law enforcement.
So, call to action. We love calls to action. And there are 2, I think, specifically for colleges and universities when it comes to Red Ribbon Week. So, we could do a whole episode on Red Ribbon Week with all of the stuff that we have going on, but specifically for colleges and universities, actually, this one's broader for the general public at large. I'm thinking of Go Red for Red Ribbon. This is an opportunity, buildings, landmarks,
Make a
sports
statement.
arenas.
Make a statement.
Yeah, absolutely.
There is nothing wrong with a community saying that we don't want our youth to use substances.
Yeah.
We want kids to grow up healthy and drug-free.
Yeah.
Because if they can get it past the development of the brain, which reaches maturity between 21 and 25, then the chances of addiction setting in are dramatically less. And making that statement, we talk about normative behavior and messaging about what the majority of people do. And the majority of people don't use drugs. The majority of people don't dabble and experiment. Remind people about that.
Yeah.
Light up your buildings in red
Yeah.
and say, we're making a statement that we want a healthy and drug-free community.
Yeah, and we know college communities have a lot of well-recognized landmarks and sports stadiums and buildings that, it would be relatively easy for them to do that and then use it as the educational springboard.
Correct.
Why is this lit up in red?
And specifically what the university and the college is doing to help support their students so that they can have a good academic time and a good experience in whatever extramural activities they're working on while they're doing their 4 to however many years studies. And it's an opportunity for the college to say, hey, this is something good for our community.
Well, of course, the other opportunity is our contest. And
Peer-to-peer communication.
yeah, I mean, when I first came on board, 2016, and you and I have talked about this, Red Ribbon Week, even now, is often seen as something that the little kids do.
Spirit Week.
It's
Spirit Week.
it's K-12.
Yep.
And we wanted to broaden that and find ways in which colleges and universities could get involved. And so we created the PSA contest in partnership with our federal partners over at the Center for Substance Abuse Prevention, CSAP. And this is a heads up now to our viewers. This fall, we will be rolling out our 8th annual Red Ribbon Week Campus Video PSA contest. This past year, we had the highest number of entries in the 7 years, and we were very pleased about that. So we are getting the word out.
And I am always impressed by the creativity and the talent and the energy and the enthusiasm that the students bring who are putting these videos, these PSAs, public service announcements, together to message to their friends and colleagues on the college campus. It's just remarkable. They get it right. It's science-based. It's evidence-informed, and it's so much more effective sometimes than hearing from the aging parent, professor, teacher, administrator role model. To have that peer-to-peer to near-peer messaging is great.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we get the opportunity to support that college or university's prevention work by giving them some prize money.
Yeah, absolutely. And so to the viewers, again, another shout out to the website. If you go to campusdrugprevention.gov/PSA contest, all of the rules, all of the information about this year's contest will be there later this year. It's end of summer, early fall that we tend to post it. But now, take a look at all of the past 7 years worth of PSAs. You can see how well they are developed, and like you said, the creativity that's on the campuses among these students and their advisors who help them put these together is pretty amazing.
Yeah, you're right.
So we're going to wrap up the interview as we wind down with a pretty big milestone for DEA. This year, we are marking our 50th anniversary, and that's quite a birthday, if you will. One of those 0 milestones. So as we continue to engage colleges, universities, and their surrounding communities, we don't want to leave out the surrounding community part. And to support their efforts into the next 50 years, what advice do you have for our viewers, mainly the professionals, even the students themselves who are watching the podcast?
Stick to it. Do not give up. It is so easy sometimes to get frustrated when another CDC epidemiological study comes out that shows that another record number of Americans were lost to overdose in the country, and to perhaps throw in the towel and say all hope is lost. If DEA had given up on our work to go after the drug cartels over these 5 decades, who knows how many countless tons of drugs would have ultimately ended up in communities and towns across this country for sale to unsuspecting Americans. So I guess my biggest hope is that folks continue. We cannot stop. As much attention has been provided over the years to the importance of the entire continuum of behavioral health, and that we have to go after the supply and the demand. At the end of the day, if we can continue to apply the sound science of prevention and utilize the resources that are available to us at the federal, state, and local level, and I can't say enough about state partnerships too.
Right.
We are delighted to work with our National Prevention Network members in all 50 states. Keep at it, because you may not see the direct impact yourself in a short term, but we all know that prevention happens over time. And to me, that's the most important thing, is the messages we send and the information we give that helps our young people make healthy decisions.
Well, to stick to it is really one of the 7 keys to a successful program. Whenever I'm talking about it, doing presentations on this, one of those keys is to be in it for the long haul. This is not a field where you're going to see overnight success.
Well, and DEA has stepped up to the game in the last couple of years. I don't know if you've mentioned it in a previous podcast episode or not, but we are in the process of adding a full-time community outreach specialist to each of our 23 DEA field divisions across the country. We chopped the country up into 23 segments. Each one is getting a full-time community outreach specialist, and that person will help to bridge public health and public safety. And one of those core audiences that we're looking to engage more and more regularly are colleges and universities.
Yeah, and it's a two-way street, because as we've been shoring up and training these folks as they come on board, we indicate that we want to help them make connections to their colleges and universities, but for the viewers, if you're interested in finding out who your community outreach specialist is in your area or region of the country, hit us up. I mean, that information's on CDP, on our interactive map in the state and local resources section. So we've laid it all out there for you, but if you're having trouble making that connection, we'd love to help you, make it for you. Sean, this has been great. I mean, there are so many takeaways, whether the viewer is new to this field or has been around a while, so many opportunities for them to connect and get involved with our initiatives. Take Back Day, One Pill Can Kill, Red Ribbon Week.
Your local DEA field offices are a resource for you, and use campusdrugprevention.gov to connect with your local DEA field office and see what areas DEA can help you with. It's not going to be every area, and every initiative doesn't require or need or justify having DEA at the table. But if we can help, we want to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. So that wraps up this episode of Prevention Profiles Take 5. We hope you enjoyed this episode and all of our previous episodes, which you can watch and listen to on campusdrugprevention.gov. With that, I'm going to say thanks for watching. Have a great day.